Good morning, everyone, or afternoon by now. We'll start on time someday. Welcome to the June 13th Monday Rotary meeting, and I would like all of you to check your cell phones and make sure they're turned to silent or turned off, please. And I would like to first invite Bob Harold up to deliver a reflection, and then Kathy Selking finish that bite and come on up and start the pledge for us, please.
Gather here today as members of Rotary. We pray that we are ever mindful of opportunities to render our service to fellow citizens and to our community, keeping in mind always the organization and values of Rotary International. Please include a special blessing for the leaders and administrators of. May they continue their mission to help close the gap between our club and Rotary International. Also, a special blessing for our speaker, that he may obtain his goals for continuing to make downtown Toledo a better place. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks, Kathy. I would also like to thank
All right. Whoops. There we go. Good afternoon, everyone. I am your current International Services Committee chairman. After being a member of Rotary for about 3 months, the previous chairman dragged me to Costa Rica in January, where I learned firsthand how far our dollars really stretch and the impact that our, what I thought of was a wonderful lunch group, has on the world. So, in the past 2 years, click maybe? Thank you, sir.
Hola.
Okay. Yep. The first one, please. So this is a video. Every year in January, there is a Uniendo conference uniting the Americas. This video that we have is a short video that Dennis Swan had put together from our time there. This is the last time we had been to an international conference. It was January of 2020, and COVID was just starting to take hold in Europe and Asia. So traveling back through, we didn't really know what we had in store, and we were grateful for the connections we made there because those helped us for the next 2 years go forward with international service projects.
Hola, bienvenidos a la Antigua, bienvenidos a Uniendo América, bienvenidos a la Feria de Proyectos en Guatemala.
So Antigua is a colonial city. It's an amazing city, super cultural. If you come here, you will see how Guatemala is, like indigenous, cultural clothes, typical clothes, amazing food. I think it's a city where you can come and rest, have a peaceful environment, like disconnect from the city, disconnect from like all the noises, and look.
My name is Mark Roweter. I'm with the Rotary Club of Kalispell. I think these project fairs are a good way to find out how much work Rotary is doing, and even I'm amazed at this, especially this one here. I think we bring two big things. We've got the people, we've got the organization, and we've got the funds behind it. I think those are the two big ones here in Guatemala, because there's the organization here.
Hey, good morning. I'm Dr. Will Bogle from Opal House, Guatemala. I just looked at Rotary as this incredible engine and networking potential of doing much bigger level programs, municipal level programs, making a bigger impact. Rotary helps me bring it to another level. Rotary lets me do $160,000 global grants that run the Rotary School. Santa Cruz is dumping into the lake. We went over there and we worked with them and worked with them and worked with them. We provided the kind of the engineering understanding, and now they've created a much better wastewater treatment plant.
My name is Bob Reel. I belong to Lima Rotary Club. Down here they say it's Lima. I happen to specialize in sanitation and water. Once you give people the experience, the thing you got to do is follow up. Today, the smart thing to do is to find out who is working in the area that you want to work in, partner up with them.
I love Rotary. Rotary not only is my hobby, but it's my passion. There's a really nice picture here. You can see it. This is Dario, and for me, this smile is like the best reward that I can have from being in Rotary. Yeah.
So our goal when going down there not only was to make international service project introductions and meet other community partners, but that lake, like we mentioned, had a lot of the same problems Lake Erie is having. So they had brought a team down that worked previously with Rotary in Lake Tahoe, and then we're working on Lake Atitlan down in Guatemala on some of the issues that we've been experiencing here in Lake Erie. Our long-term goal is to work with that same group somehow on working in the Lake Erie watershed. So in 2020 and 2021, this is just a quick summary of what we were able to accomplish from our grant funding. You can see a couple of these were smaller than others, but that year we made a really big effort on global grants, and I believe 4 of these. Next slide, please. Thank you, sir. 4 of those were global grants that we had worked on, including one with the closest club to us as the crow flies over Lake Erie. It was a clean water project in Malawi in Africa, but our goal was just to establish a contact with them so that should a Lake Erie project come up, we have a very close international partner that we've worked with in the past. One of the project there's our year of global grants. Next slide, please. Thank you, sir. One of the project spotlights, we funded not just us, but us and a number of other partners funded a pediatric cardiac program in Bucharest, Romania, where congenital heart disease is the #1 or one of the top causes of death in children. Because of that program, that year alone, 50 plus children, 56 received treatment, and there were 20 more slated for that year. We still get updates every quarter from this organization. Another spotlight, this one came from that Guatemala conference you saw. Our club funded a family nurturing room at a community center in Guatemala City. That city's broken down into districts. This is the poorest district with the largest dump in Guatemala. After school, there's a lot of safe places for families and children to go. ago. So this organization has been there for about 18 years, wanted to construct a community center that would provide that safe space, and our club funded the family nurturing room in that space. Thank you, sir. This current year, you can see we funded a handful of projects, and this year we didn't have a good chance to get on global grants or meet international partners. So what we had hoped to do was stretch our dollars a little further than just direct donations. Next slide, please. Thank you, sir. So you can see that our $10,000 to Polio Plus was matched $2 for every $1. We had an emergency grant request from the district for the Ukraine Humanitarian Crisis Fund. That was matched 100%. We had a $10,000 global grant for a solar refrigeration project. That came from the Environmental Sustainability Rotary Action Group that Mike Noble became a member of. That one was matched partially by the district, and because of that match, they met their complete funding goal and now have all they need to create that solar refrigeration project. Previously, their power was knocked out from a hurricane, and they didn't have sustainable farming practices for a couple of months. So next year, we have a couple of goals. We hope to get back to our Uniendo conference. That's really where we're able to make our connections, get introduced to project partners, and follow up with other project partners. We're hoping to explore more global grant opportunities, and like we mentioned, the Environmental Sustainability Rotary Action Group. SRAG is a new initiative from Rotary International since environmental sustainability is added as the 7th area of focus. Mike Noble joined that, I believe, in its 2nd year and has become very active, and it's our hope that we continue that while he becomes the district environmental service chairman. I think that's all I got. Oh, Polio Plus. It was a tough year for polio the past 2 years because of COVID. Not that many travel trips and immunization tours were carried out. So because of that, we saw an increase in the number of polio cases. We've got 5 cases year to date. For the first time in a long time, Mozambique is on that list. For a long while, it had just been Afghanistan and Pakistan. So we're hoping to increase that. As a whole, on the district level, I'm our Polio Plus chairman for the year. Thanks to the generosity of a lot of clubs like ours, we have raised just over $2 million donated to Polio Plus in hopes of finally someday getting rid of that disease for good. Any questions, I'm happy to answer. If not, I'll turn it back over to President Serrano.
I have one question. Do you know where Uniendo is this year and when it is? Okay. Usually they announce it the previous year. It's somewhere in Central America. Maybe it's back in Panama this coming year, but if anybody has a chance to go, it's usually last week of January, and it's really good weather down there.
Yeah. Atitlan, A-T-I-T-L-A-N, Lago de Atitlan. It's in a volcano crater, so all around it are these giant dormant volcanoes. It looks like something out of a fantasy book. It's just miraculous. Thank you.
Thanks, Danny.
Yeah.
All right. I just want to say a few things about, we did receive a district governor's citation for cooperation with grants for the Maumee River Tree Project and also for the So Hope Food Pack that we did out at St. John's. So we did receive that from the district governor. And we also received, as you can see over here, some of you probably can't see it over there, but it's a resolution by the city of Toledo thanking us for our 110 years of service. So they did that at council last week, and we had several Rotarians there. If you haven't paid your dues, if you haven't seen an invoice, please pay them. Or this year, we're basically not going to string people on until they pay their dues, because we always have to pay, if you're on the rolls, at the start of the year, we pay about $150 in RI and district dues that part of your dues go to. And then if you don't stay as a member, we're still on the hook for that. So it just makes sense to try to make sure that we're going to get our members paid up. Also, as you can see, it's Mesa Bike Ride next Monday. It's going to be a good time. We're going to meet down at Middle Grounds. I'll tell a little bit more about the details at the end today if I have time. The Rotary Golf League has an outing on Friday this week, and I don't know too much about it, but if you look at the spoke, that will tell you. And we are going to move on then. And Joe Sharp, would you please come up and introduce our speaker? This should be fun.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is my pleasure today to introduce Nick Eyde, who will be speaking on the Tower on the Maumee. Nick was part of the Lansing-based George F. Eyde family, which is Eyde Company, and moved to Toledo to work on the $44 million renovation plan of the 28th floor Owens Corning Fiberglass Tower, which is Toledo's second tallest skyscraper. And I just found out a few minutes ago that it's actually the highest skyscraper in Toledo because of the location where they sit. So it's always nice to be number one. The building is exceptionally significant as an international style office tower and remains the most significant modernist architecture landmark in the city. The building has been nominated to be listed on the National Register of Historic Places. The Eyde family business, which is land development and construction, ultimately prepared Nick for challenges like the tower on the Maumee. But for Nick, there was a detour. 6 years playing American football in Europe, most notably for the Italian Serie Bozana Giants. As with the Tower project, Nick was the quarterback whose exploits and long passes still live on YouTube. So check it out. They're out there. Nick returned home to Lansing to work with his family's development company and soon became the point man on the Tower project in Toledo. The GI development, which is now the company that is managing the project, he's now the manager of the project, and Nick is a managing member. He and his wife have 2 children, and they live in Sylvania, Ohio. Please welcome Nick Eyde.
Thank you, Joe, and thank you, Rotary, for having me. It's always a joy to talk about this project. Before I start, Dominic, I need to just turn this on. Is that right? Yeah. All right. So, turning this on. If I have technical difficulty, I'll refer back to Dominic, but it's been a winding road, this project. I mean, we moved here 3 years ago as a family, my wife and I and our children, but I've been coming to Toledo since the end of 2006, working on, and I'm going to try this right now. There we go. Working on this building. And I don't believe there's anything in coincidence. There's no such thing as a coincidence. Things happen for a reason, and there was a reason why I started coming to Toledo, why my father and uncle, mainly my father, purchased this building back in 1998. And I kind of went through this winding road of development and learning about Toledo and the history of this building and the other developments that we have in Toledo, it's kind of confirmed to me that there is no such thing as a coincidence. And so I came back from Italy kind of at the end of 06, beginning of 07, and started working on this building in particular and another vacant building that our company had up in the Lansing area. And as you know, in the real estate, some of you are in the real estate business. If you have vacant buildings, they cost you money and they will kill your business. And the longer you have them, the more difficult it is to survive. And so we had this building, and not many companies can withstand having a 30-story building vacant for multiple years. And so that was a big charge for me. When I came back from Italy, we had kind of weekly morning meetings, and in these weekly morning meetings, there was this building and another vacant building we had in Lansing. And we would evaluate, what do we do, and what's going on, what's happening in this market. And we had a property manager at the time, great guy, but he was managing almost 5 million square feet of real estate, majority of it in Michigan, so he wasn't making trips down to this area. And so I immediately saw, okay, well, there's an opportunity for me to come in to add some value and to contribute and to learn more about Toledo. And that wasn't a coincidence. The more I got involved, the more I kind of saw what was happening. There's so much history to Toledo. There's so much history to these buildings. And at that point, the end of 2006, 2007, I saw opportunity. I mean, a lot of people maybe didn't see it back then, but there were folks that that certainly did, and it has contributed to a lot of what's happened and where we've come today. I do want to start with history. I was a history major, so I want to give you guys a little bit of the history because I don't know, I certainly didn't, I don't know if you guys know the history of this building and then the neighboring building, which was the Toledo Trust building, which is also a project that I'm working on as well, and the what's called the historic Levis Park there as well. How many people, and Paul is the expert historian here as well, so correct me where I go wrong, but the majority of this I should get pretty right. This building and the Toledo Trust building, so Toledo Trust was the first skyscraper. They were contributed by two of the most significant architect designing firms in world history, okay? And here they are within 100 feet of each other in downtown Toledo. This building was designed by Harrison and Abramovitz, okay, which is kind of the quintessential mid-century modernist architecture firm in the world. And then the Toledo Trust building was designed by Daniel Burnham. And raise your hand if you know who Daniel Burnham is. I mean, that's a big deal. Daniel Burnham designed the Flatiron building in New York. And if you look him up, he's designed many of the most wonderful buildings throughout the world. He's also the protagonist in a book called Devil in the White City. Has anybody read that book? If you haven't read that book, it's a must. It's kind of an existential journey and this battle between good and evil and one of the most important historical events in American history, which is about the Chicago World's Fair. I knew nothing about it. I knew nothing about the book until I was telling somebody that this building had been designed by Daniel Burnham, and they said, "Have you read Devil in the White City?" I said, "No." But fascinating book, and the thing is, it's a completely true story. And they tell you in the introduction of that book that almost you're not going to believe that this is true, but it is true. And so here we have this building, the parking structure, and Levis Park, and the Toledo Trust building designed by two of the most prominent architects in world history. And there's a third one, and I think Paul knows this. So that whole plaza where these two buildings sit and the park sit was designed by I.M. Pei, which is crazy to think about. So I.M. Pei was commissioned by, and I don't know exactly all the details of it, was commissioned by somebody in tandem with Dan Galbraith, who was the Columbus-based developer who then went on to own the Pittsburgh Pirates. And they named that whole area Riverview that was based on Erie View, the same design that I.M. Pei did for Cleveland, okay? And then did I.M. Pei then go on and design the new headquarters for Owens Corning? Is that right? I don't know. Okay, all right, so different group, but okay. But in any case, I've learned all about this history, and I start to appreciate, my gosh, Toledo has so much to offer, and started working on this project. And one of the gentlemen came up, and one of the first things that people know about, there are two things that people identify: the former Fiberglass Tower, it's now the tower on the Maumee. They identify it with top of the tower, which, how many people went to top of the tower? When that was a restaurant on the top floor that many people asked me about. The other one was asbestos. Owens Corning, this was Owens Corning's world headquarters from really 1969 all the way up to 1996. And so they moved out, and the building was essentially vacant from 1996-7 all the way up to 2015. I should point out one other thing too. When I.M. Pei and these guys did their plan for this building, there's 20,000 square feet of retail/arcade space underneath the parking structure. That's also a modernist parking structure. That was never occupied as retail. Never. Owens Corning kind of repurposed it as office space, and I'm going to touch on that later, but that's important. When that was designed, even back in Toledo's heyday, it was never occupied as true retail. We'll revisit that later. So getting back to kind of where we were when this happened, Owens Corning moved out. We purchased the building in '98. Basically sat undeveloped, a lot of stops and starts that I think some folks are familiar with. And one of my first trips down here, when I was trying to find my value and find what am I going to bring to this business, how are we going to work on these buildings that are vacant, was, okay, there's asbestos. What do we do about that? That's a non-starter. That's a big issue for a building. And at the time, State of Ohio had a program called the Clean Ohio Revitalization Fund. And normally those projects are awarded to brownfields, which are, old gas plants or, vacant pieces of land that can't be developed on. And there was a gentleman working at the city at the time that said, hey, why don't we apply for your building and call it it's a vertical brownfield. This is a brownfield, it's contaminated, and see if the state sees it the same way we do. And so we did. We applied for the Clean Ohio Revitalization Fund grant. It was awarded. We completed the first phase of abatement and did the first phase of demo for the building. Now that finished around 2010, 11. And so at the time, my father and my uncle were partners on the building. And so my uncle said, you know, this is all great and so forth, but you know, what does the future look like in Toledo? We need a market study. We need someone to tell us what's going to happen in downtown Toledo. Can we lease apartment units? Can we lease office space? Can we lease retail? And so we commissioned a group out of Cincinnati to put together a market study, tell us, hey, you know, what can we do with this building? And I have to tell you, I mean, the timing, 2009, 2010, you know, you're coming out of an economic downturn. I'm new to this business. I'm coming from football fields in Italy. And this market study comes back, and it could not have been more of a gut punch. The gut punch was like, okay, we don't see you leasing any office, retail, or anything. And we don't see, the market rental rates are lower than any other place comparable in the Midwest. And I'm sitting there, okay, this was great. You know, where do we go from here? And my uncle said, that's it. I'm done. And George, which is my father's name, which goes back to Eyde Development, said, I think we see something here. I think there's something going on. You know, at that point, the arena had been built downtown. Mud Hens games were heavily attended. I was spending a lot of time. I had this feeling of a potential buzz happening. ProMedica was making some really nice moves downtown. So my father, I give him credit. You know, he said, you know, I think there's something here. I think the national trend is you know, kind of the reemergence, the reurbanization of some of these, you know, second and third tier markets. And Toledo has water. He always thought Toledo has water. There's water there. And so we pushed forward. My uncle said, I'm done. And, you know, really kind of, we hit on all cylinders at that point after that, because we applied for state historic, federal historic were awarded. And you know, kind of fast forward, there were still some winding turns on development and construction and rehabilitating old buildings, which, you know, in the Q&A part, we can talk a little bit about that, but kind of to make a long story a little bit shorter, you know, you fast forward, we're 100% leased. We've leased almost 90,000 square feet of office, retail, and commercial space. And, you know, the big thing to me is, as I've looked through the historic documents, is when that building was built, the retail arcade was never retail. Well, we have retail there. You know, we have restaurants now, we have a gym, we have a credit union, we have a carry-out store, and it's all occupied. And that's the first time. I mean, when that building was built, the retail arcade was not retail. So, and we've got, you know, obviously some great office tenants there. Hanson Inc. and Directions Credit Union are both in the building. 106 residential units, and we've maintained upper 90s, anywhere from 98 to 100% occupancy. And so it's just been a wonderful winding road of, you know, believing in what's happened here in Toledo and being welcomed by the community. I mean, that's the other part of this. So when we moved 3 years ago, even before that, just when Toledo gets behind something and when Toledoans believe in something, good things happen. And so that's been a really nice thing to be a part of. And I'll show you guys a couple other kind of slides here so you can see what's happened in the building. I'm going to step away. If you guys can't hear me, let me know. But 18 to 28 is where we have 106 of the residential units, 15 to 17 Directions Credit Union, and then 2 through 14 are future developed, to be developed floors. I do have a lease that we just got done with the 14th floor, which is for a new office user. And I see, I'm not talking loud enough, so Kevin, thank you. There's 30 people online that can't hear you. Hello? Okay. So I'm going to start back and talk about 18 through 28. You can see we have 106 residential units, 15 to 17 Directions Credit Union, and then 2 through 14 are the next developable floors. We have a lease now with the 14th floor for a new group coming into the building. We're pretty excited about that. So coming out of COVID and seeing leasing and office leasing going forward has been a good thing. I'll jump ahead. I want to talk a little bit about some of the Italy tie-ins, but that front desk there, and the tile in the residential units was installed by and created by Italian artisans, 5 guys who came on artisan visas, who put the tile work in and did a wonderful job, and then also built the front desk as well. I think you guys know about Standard CrossFit is one of the retail tenants, Balance Grill, as well as Balance Farms. Everybody know about Balance Farms? It's an aquaponic farm that's inside a mixed-use urban building. So it's 8,800 square feet. They grow microgreens in there. They can grow 1,500 heads of lettuce a week. And so it's a really kind of a, what I call the true mixed use. So you've got residential, retail, commercial, and then you have agriculture. So I call that the real mixed use. What else? It gives you location. This is a new project. You know, before I get to that, why don't I see if there are questions, and then I can talk about that if you like. But how about any questions related to the tower and that?
Yeah. So is the asbestos totally gone now?
Asbestos on every floor except a part of the ground floor has been abated. There are 2, I think 1 column that has been totally encapsulated, and that's the only spot.
Does your uncle regret his decision?
You never, in my experience, you never go back, and I don't think so. My uncle's not the type of guy that looks backward, and I'm not the type of guy that says, oh, go and ask somebody that. I mean, I think you just keep looking forward, and I mean, no matter what, he was always supportive, and I respected his decision. You know, if I'd have been in his shoes and he saw the market study, and I don't know, but I was at that point, I was convinced and excited to go forward.
What are your plans for the old trust building?
What a great building, right? And so the plan for the Toledo Trust building, which is now Riverfront Apartments, is to there are a number of vacant units in that building, and to convert those to market rate and occupy them. Now, Promedica Credit Union has occupied about 7,500 square feet of that first floor, and if you haven't seen their space is gorgeous. And there's one other space left that's 1,400 square feet, and that's the last retail space that I have available on Summit Street. And so I'd like to see restaurant type of use in that space.
2 questions. Are the residences in the tower on the Maumee rentals, or are they condos?
They are rentals, yep.
And what have you seen in terms of the implication of remote working, with respect to office market?
Yeah, so it's definitely going to change the office market. I don't think anybody doubts that, but it seems like it's constantly evolving, right? So, we're the one group that we've picked up that's going to be taking the 14th floor has an opportunity to kind of redefine their space in the post-COVID world. The other side of that coin is the more we learn about COVID, COVID, is a movement. Your cardiovascular system is super important to making sure that you're healthy. And so, and getting, around other folks, I don't know if the next 2 or 3 years will kind of change that and say, we need to be back together in offices. We as Americans, we move more through our working environment. So do we need to be in offices creating more movement? Is it healthier for Americans? There are so many unanswered questions and so many, things that I think are going to learn or, evaluate over the next years. Does it make sense to keep people moving and keep them working as a part of their day rather than working remotely and like we all did and wearing, pajama bottoms and, and tops, but you're not moving, and a part of the American movement is our work, right? So I don't know. I don't have that crystal ball, but it's certainly changed and it's going to continue to change and evolve. That's a great question, because I was just talking about that with folks too, and it ties in a little bit to this project here. So the downtown rental market for multifamily is extremely strong. If anybody were to bring on new units now, which there are all sorts of new units coming, they would fill. It's where folks want to live right now, because you have the opportunity to walk to so many different amenities, especially now, because you can go to a ball game, you can go to, the number of great places to eat down here is just, I mean, and that's the other thing that, you know, moving here and getting to know the community, Toledo is really a foodie community. The restaurants are awesome. So, so I go back and forth. We have the units that will update it at the Toledo Trust Building, and then, you know, I've just leased this office floor. In the back of my mind, because the building splits itself into two very well. It has two separate sets of elevator banks that deal with both the top and the bottom half of the building. So part of me is like, I did a micro unit project in Lansing, and I'm thinking, okay, we have the amazing views and some of the larger units up on the upper floors. You could have a really interesting micro unit community, which again, living in Europe when I played American football, I mean, I lived in places that were 200-300 square feet and never wanted more space, but I've always kind of been a minimalist. Every time I left, my mom, I'd have 2 duffel bags for a football season of 8 months. She's like, "What? Where are the rest of your bags? This is all I need." So, but I think there's more of a demand for even spaces that accommodate that, where people want less. They don't want a bunch of belongings. They don't want a bunch of things that they're carrying around. They want experiences. They want, you know, tangible feelings about life and not as many material objects. So I think there's a market for that, and those are things that I'm exploring. Now at the same time, this evolving office market, getting back to your question, you know, we've leased 1 floor. I do have some interest on the 13th floor for another lease. So either way, it would be nice to be able to maybe do some both ways, maybe 6 floors of office and then do some micro unit developments on some of the other floors.
I'm sorry, as a follow-up, is there any talk or any planning to design a food market, an upscale, like a food market? I don't know where people who live downtown.
Yeah, I mean, that is a continuing question for downtown is, and I can tell you, I've made multiple phone calls and met with multiple, and you're talking about a market, you're talking about grocery services. And I will tell you this, the first group that comes in downtown, it will do very well. You know, I mean, it just will. That's in the core of downtown. ProMedica has a pretty cool market that's just a little bit ways out of downtown, and it's appreciated. And I think there's even room for a bigger one. But that's a you know, a call that I make frequently. And there are groups that are interested. I've toured multiple groups. COVID kind of slowed that conversation, but that'll be one of the next things that really spurs more activity and development down here for sure. Any other questions? I'll just talk a little bit about this project too. So living in Europe and using kind of different materials, this is something that has been kind of a dream of mine going forward, but it's a kind of a micro unit development as well, but on multiple levels that you could put in walking distance to anywhere downtown. I'm evaluating this for a number of different areas. So, but that gets back to the micro unit conversation, and I also think that there's room. I know it, and I think most would agree here. There's a room for a for sale product downtown, and people want to own. They want to own more things in the downtown core. Now, and I think there will be opportunity for that in the coming years as well. Now, Joe wanted me to mention as well, tying into a lot of these ideas have come from Italy. I'm also working on an Italian Bowl project. In fact, I'll be going to Italy at the end of this month to go to the Italian Bowl of American football in Bologna. It'll be played at the Serie A soccer stadium in Bologna. And so working with BCSN on bringing the Italian Bowl from Italy to Toledo in July of 2023. So a very exciting project. The Italian Federation of American Football is thrilled with the idea. It would be the first time just so you know, there are championships of American football in almost every European country. There's even a American Football League in Ukraine that hasn't been able to have their season with what's going on there. But every country has an American Football League, and this would be the first time that their championship game would be played. Any championship game would be played outside of the home country. It would be a kind of a destination Italian Bowl, so to speak. And I believe there are a lot of, again, no coincidences, there are a lot of tie-ins here between our community and Italy and kind of the birth of American football over there. So we know the Jeep was made here, the Jeep was born here, and American football came to Europe via the Jeep when the American military liberated Italy, and the soldiers had American footballs, and American football started on the bases there, and then these leagues grew out of that experience. I mean, there's a team in our sister city of Ferrara that was started in 1979. Gianni Versace owned a football team in Milan for a long time, and so it's very project very dear to my heart, and very excited to be able to bring that to Toledo.
Any other thoughts on any of the other available vacant buildings downtown, development, any appetite by your company, or any other thoughts on development of those buildings?
Always looking for new projects and always interested. I think there's still significant, I think anybody would agree, there's still significant opportunity for development in downtown Toledo. So I haven't specifically looked at any other buildings, but have looked at a couple of pieces of land to do this type of development.
For those, you'd be looking at vacant property.
Correct. Yeah. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you guys very much. It was a pleasure to speak here and talk about the tower.
Thanks, Nick. Really great talk. Nice to have an update. Several years ago, we kind of had some initial views on what was going to happen there, so now we know what did happen there. In appreciation, we'd like to give you this Historical Tales of Toledo. You'll probably learn a few things about the city. So that's an interesting book by past president of Toledo Rotary, Clint Mock. And also, we'd like to make a donation to the Polio Plus Fund in your name and invite you to become a member.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks. All right, next meeting, June 20th, is the Middle Grounds, the Mesa Bikers. So you can wear one of these. No, it's going to be good. We're going to have great food. Jackie has arranged for kind of a picnic lunch with Dietz Barbecue. And we also, on the way between Perrysburg and the Middle Grounds, are going to stop at the National Museum of the Great Lakes. Thank you, Kate Fineski, for arranging that. And then for riders, that is free. The lunch is free. And then we're also, did I mention we're getting cookies from compliments of Yuval Zeliuk and his daughter Tamar. And so those will be great. And then we're going to move on to Sidecut Park, where Maumee will host a water break. So I'm hoping we get a lot of riders. If you don't want to ride, you can also make a pledge to Mesa in my name or anybody else's name. Do come to lunch regardless, because it's going to be a really nice day. 85 degrees, maybe around 80 at noon, and sunny, and it'll be right down on the river, so it should be fun. There's one committee meeting today, and that is a program committee at 1 o'clock right after this, down by the parking garage entrance. You'll see it down there. And I would like to thank our visitors, Mike, Deshaun, Allison, and Peter. And Nick, thanks again. Really enjoyed your talk. With that, we are adjourned.